Hey guys, welcome back to Super Top 10s. Today, we'll talk about the innocent death row victims. Let's head into it. Number 1. Cameron Todd Willingham. In 1992, Willingham was convicted of arson murder in Texas. He was believed to have intentionally set a fire that killed his 3 kids. In 2004, he was put to death. Unfortunately, the Texas Forensic Science Commission later found the evidence was misinterpreted, and they concluded that none of the evidence used against Willingham was valid. As it turns out, the fire really was accidental. After the fire, the police investigation determined that the fire had been started using some form of liquid accelerant. This evidence, including a finding of char patterns in the floor in the shape of puddles, a finding of multiple starting points of the fire, and tested positive for such an accelerant in the area of the front door. No clear motive was found, and Willingham's wife denied that the couple had been fighting prior to the night of the fire. Number 2. Ruben Cantu. Cantu was 17 at the time the crime he was alleged of committing took place. Cantu was convicted of capital murder, and in 1993, the Texas teen was executed. About 12 years after his death, investigators show that Cantu likely didn't commit the murder. The lone eyewitness recanted his testimony, and Cantu's co-defendant later admitted he allowed his friend to be falsely accused. He says Cantu wasn't even there the night of the murder. Number 3. Larry Griffin. Griffin was put to death in 1995 for the 1981 murder of Quinton Moss, a Missouri drug dealer. Griffin always maintained his innocence, and now evidence seems to indicate he was telling the truth. The first police officer on the scene now says that the eyewitness account was false, even though the officer supported the claims during the trial. Another eyewitness who was wounded during the attack was never contacted, and he says Griffin wasn't present at the crime scene that night. Number 4. Carlos De Luna. In 1989, De Luna was executed for stabbing of a Texas convenience store clerk. Almost 20 years later, Chicago Tribune uncovered evidence that shows De Luna was likely innocent. The evidence showed that Carlos Hernandez, a man who even confessed to the murder many times, actually did the crime. From the moment of his arrest until the day of his death by lethal injection, 6 years later, De Luna consistently protested that he was innocent. He went further. He said that though he hadn't committed the murder, he knew who had. He even named the culprit, a notoriously violent criminal called Carlos Hernandez. Number 5. David Wayne Spence. Spence was put to death in 1997 for the murder of the 3 teenagers in Texas. He was supposedly hired by a convenience store clerk to kill someone else, but he allegedly killed the wrong people by mistake. The supervising police lieutenant said, "I don't think David Spence committed this crime." The lead homicide detective agreed, saying, "My opinion is that David Spence was innocent. Nothing from the investigation ever led us to any evidence that he was involved." Number 6. Jessie Tafero. In 1976, Tafero was convicted of murdering a state trooper. He and Sonia Jacobs were both sentenced to death for the crime. The main evidence used to convict them was a testimony by someone else who was involved in the crime, ex-convict Walter Rhodes. Rhodes gave his testimony in exchange for a life sentence. In 1990, Tafero was put to death. 2 years later, his companion Jacobs was released due to lack of evidence. The same evidence used to put Tafero to death. The case became a causa célèbre among death penalty opponents, who cited the brutal circumstances of Tafero's execution as reasons it would be abolished. Rhodes didn't receive further jail time. Filmmaker Mickey Dickoff made a crime drama on the case entitled The Blink of an Eye, which aired as an ABC Movie of the Week. Number 7. Thomas Griffin and Meeks Griffin. The oldest case on this list dates back to 1915. The Griffin brothers, 2 black men, were convicted of the murder of a white man. The reason they were convicted is that Monk Stevenson, another black man, suspected of committing the murder, pointed to the brothers as having been responsible. He later admitted the reason he blamed them is that they were wealthy, and he assumed they had the money to beat the charges. The Griffin brothers were completely innocent, but they were put to death nonetheless. This brings us to the end of our video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hit like if you did, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss any of our videos in the future. Also, watch the 2 videos that are on your screen because I'm sure you'll love them. With that, I'll see you in the next video.